Welcome to another instalment looking at my 18mm Napoleonic collection. Today my Austrian Cavalry. As you can see, they're all laid out here before you. Again, these were all mostly painted a decade, maybe more ago, in almost all cases. I think the Austrian Cavalry are some of the older figures that I painted and some of the earliest ones I painted. But I've got different types of regiments here laid out, a mixture of light and heavy or medium, depending in some cases on your point of view cavalry. So we'll start at the front here. So these are a couple of regiments of Austrian Cuirassiers. There's two different facings in here. We've got light green and red, although only one of those has a sort of stand of command figures, which are wearing red facings just there. You can't see obviously because it's on the reverse side, but they've only got their front plates, as was the case with Austrian Cuirassiers, somewhat to their detriment in certain situations. Then behind them, you've got, and this is a slightly perhaps roundabout contentious sort of thing, which is these are what I'm saying are Dragoons, and or they could be Chevaulegers. There's a change in uniform that goes on over the period between green and white. Some of the Chevaulegers units, the light cavalry, had a couple of regiments in white, but the Dragoons definitely wore white, and I'll probably be using these as Dragoons because then I've got 4 regiments in total to make up 2 brigades, so a whole heavy cavalry division for the Austrians, which would be quite nice. And you see these ones are 6 bases each. I'll zoom in there. And you've got 1 regiment with light blue facings, and then another with slightly darker red facings just behind them on there. So that's the Dragoons / sometimes Chevaulegers, depending on my mood. Then at the back here, you've got a regiment of Austrian Hussars, including at the front 2 bases of Hungarian Insurrectio Hussars, because when I was looking through, I think the order of battle some time ago, and I could get it up again, the Insurrectio do come up. I do have some of the infantry as skirmishers for the Austrian infantry as well, and so I've just attached them here to a Hussar unit for the sake of a nice big block of light cavalry there, or a little knock of one at the back. And I suppose I could have them as a small group of 4 figures, or just attach them to a bigger unit and blend in with the rest of the Hussars. But then, to go along with them in the light cavalry then, there's the dark green Chevaulegers that I was talking about. And so these, along with the Hussars, would probably go in one of the avant-garde formations, making up the cavalry element of those smaller, sort of light troop avant-garde divisions that the Austrians favoured as time moved on and they reorganised. And that one's got 7 bases there, slightly larger. In general, the Austrian cavalry regiments I've got are at least 6 bases, or 6 stands, depending on which word you prefer to use, as opposed to some of the French ones, which are maybe 5 or even 4 in the case of some of the heavy units. The Austrian Cuirassier here, only 5 each at the moment. But that is it, really, fairly straightforward. There's nice compact clump of different blocks of Austrian cavalry troops. They are quite pleasing to get out, like all the others, in blocks like this and have a look at them. And they're, as I say, actually pretty well organised for me to be able to use them in a game straight away, because I've got maybe 3 brigades worth of cavalry there, could represent up to maybe 4,000 troopers at a time. A heavy cavalry division on this side, as I said, and then a couple of light regiments on that side to make up a light cavalry brigade for an avant-garde division. And I can do that because I have the infantry to make up one of those in the form of Jägers, Grens, and also one of the Mar Freiwillige battalions from the time, I think the 2nd. But anyway, we'll get to that when I have a look at the Austrian infantry with you. In the meantime, we'll have a quick last look along the rows there. I appreciate people want to see that. All the basing is consistent with everything else that I've shown already. This is back at a time when I had lots and lots of different clumps to choose from, as you can tell from the way I've done the bases, and with a bit more space on the cavalry, you can afford to put a few more clumps and rocks and tufts and other things that you like on the bases, just to break them up a bit. Otherwise, it can look a bit bare and sparse between the figures. These have been quite rigidly organised in pairs and behind each other, unlike later figures that I based in all scales, where I do keep them in their formations, in lines, particularly the infantry, but I like to have a little bit of sort of dispersal and friction between the figures. They're not in perfect sort of geometric robotic lines too much, because that just sits better to my eye once they're all finished. But anyway, that is the Austrian cavalry. Very quick whip through. Not a huge amount more to say about these, but in the next episode I will get out the Austrian infantry I'm just finishing doing some basing on them, actually, because they've languished unloved from that point of view for some time. And after that, that's pretty much it, apart from command figures and artillery, which I will do as a separate video as well. And then what I hope to do is get these on the table for a game in the next few weeks. But like everything, it's all time dependent. And in the meantime, I wish you happy hobbying.